Friends, God bless you. Welcome back to another episode of Being and Making Disciples. It's good to be with you. And special guest today is Marcel LeJeune, who is the president and founder of Catholic Missionary Disciples. He is also an author and a speaker. For 11 years, he worked at the campus ministry at Texas A&M University, which is the largest campus ministry in the country. Wouldn't surprise me if it's the largest in the world. And
It's
I
the biggest in
understand,
the world. Yeah.
yeah, I understand you'll have more people going to mass on a Sunday, more college students going to mass at your campus ministry than I think might go to mass at any other state cumulative at all of their campus ministries.
Yeah, I don't know about that,
Okay.
especially post-COVID now. But
Okay.
yeah, we were at probably about 5,000 people when I worked there coming to mass on a weekend.
That's a lot. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm familiar with the campus ministries in Florida, and Florida is the third
Mhm.
most populous state. And I think it'd be tough to combine all of the campus ministries and hit that number. So maybe California or somebody's got
Yeah.
can top that overall. But nonetheless, amazing campus ministry program. God's clearly doing good things there. And probably more important than any of that stuff, you're a father and a husband. I would imagine that
Mhm.
you love that gift more than anything else God has given
Yeah, when I'm not sinning, you know,
you.
when I'm not sinning.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. No, I
just
hear
like the
you.
rest of us, right?
Yeah. Everything's fun until we ruin it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And then God's got to come clean up our mess. Thanks,
Yeah.
Dad. Yeah.
Well, as I mentioned at the beginning, you are the president and founder of Catholic Missionary Disciples, and I'd
Yeah.
love for you to tell our listeners what that is and what you do.
Yeah, my wife asks me this all the time. What I do is I coach Catholic leaders in diocesan and parish leadership positions and their leadership teams on how to actually do church renewal, what that looks like. So we start with the things that they missed in their own formation in seminary, grad school, work, especially what it really truly takes to evangelize and disciple people. And then how do you scale that up? How do you do that on an institutional level? How do you implement practices and strategies that actually work and do the work of parish renewal? As kind of a secondary thing, Catholic Missionary Disciples also helps average Catholics become great evangelists. So that's what we do. We really focus on those things. We want to make Catholic Missionary Disciples a redundant term. And unfortunately, right now, it's really not. So,
Yeah. No, I hear you. I joke that that's the last thing Jesus said to do, so you would think it's the most important,
yeah.
but it's usually the last thing any of us want to do.
Yeah. Well, I don't know about, I know some folks who it comes natural. It's
Yeah.
just a matter of, falling deeper in love with God and with the people around you. Ultimately, that's what it's about. I mean, so
Yeah.
podcast done. It's good talking to you, Dan.
Likewise, man. Hey, is that Topo Chico you're drinking?
It is. I am a big fan of the Topo Chico.
Is that a
So
Texas thing?
it is a huge Texas thing,
Okay.
because it's imported from Mexico, so it's just basically bubbly water,
Yeah.
and it became big in Texas, and it's exploded. It's hard to find sometimes now. Well,
Yeah.
there's lots of things that are hard to find, but
I hear you.
let's
Yeah.
not
Well,
get
you're
into
the
supply
you're
chain.
the you're the second Texan on the show we've had who's drinking Topo Chico. The other one is Edmund Mitchell.
Oh, well, yeah, Edmund's a dork, but he drinks good stuff. Um, if I'm not drinking Topo Chico, I'm probably drinking coffee, and if I'm not drinking those two, I've got a glass of bourbon. So there you
Gotcha.
go.
Gotcha. So favorite type of bourbon.
Favorite type of bourbon for a general, well-priced, easygoing, middle of the line, great quintessential bourbon, Buffalo Trace.
Okay.
But I probably keep about 30 bottles on hand at any time. I kind of collect. So
Okay.
yeah, I'm one of the snobs, but I'm not so
Gotcha.
snobby to tell you, Dan, that you can't like a bad bourbon. Now, there are some
Fair
bad
enough.
bourbons out there, but you can
So
still like it. I don't
yeah,
care.
yeah. No, so I'm allowed to like Old Granddad.
Oh well, it depends on what old granddad you like. You know,
I like both, but I like Bonded.
okay, that's not bad. I mean, but if
Yeah.
you're gonna get bottom shelf, old granddad, screw top, but if you get like old granddad 411 or something like that, that's pretty good stuff. You
Okay.
know,
I don't think I've ever even seen that on the shelf. I've only seen the standard and the Bonded.
Yeah, look, most bourbons nowadays are pretty good. Otherwise, they
Yeah.
don't sell real well.
Right. Right.
It's some of these small ones are experimental bottles, and you're like, yeah, it was nice try, guys,
Yeah. Yeah.
but it's kind of like evangelization to bring it back, To, some people try some stuff and it falls flat, and you learn from it. Hopefully, you're
Yeah.
learning from it. But anyway,
That was the smoothest transition from a tangent back to the main topic that we've had, I think, in the entire podcast. And it was by a guest. I'm s-
I've done this for a while, but let me tell you, if you want rabbit trails, man, I'm from Texas, where we like to tell stories in the South anyway, but Texans in particular, with our big bold stories, we'll
yeah. Yeah.
follow that rabbit for a long time. So I got to bring myself back sometimes.
Okay. Gotcha. All right. Well, let's talk about the main topic here, because that's
Yeah.
what people want to know about. And I'm really glad you said that you work with organizations, but you also work with individuals to
Mhm.
help them become Catholic missionary disciples and make that term redundant.
Yeah.
Um, Reading the description of what Catholic missionary disciples do, you have this radical idea of doing what Jesus did.
Hmm.
And that's finding a small group of people and investing heavily in them, spending a lot of time with them, teaching them a way of life, a way of prayer, kind of giving them the basic tools of handing on the faith, giving them some what we would call probably catechetical or theological instruction, and
Hmm.
then letting them work. So, I mean, really, it sounds like an apprenticeship. Um, that idea already existed and has existed for 2,000 years. But how did you happen upon it?
Well, people did it with me. Um, that's the and what happened was that I had people who mentored me, led me, discipled me, people who evangelized me before that. And I've always had good leaders in my life, somebody that I was following. I've always had somebody I looked up to who was a good Catholic disciple who taught me, okay, this is the direction you need to go. And so that model works. And we can't say that every other model works, but that model almost each and every time works. If you find a more mature Catholic disciple and you go and mentor under them or follow them or sit at their feet, whatever kind of language you want to use, you're probably going to grow faster than if you just pick up a program or just go to church or just read books or go get a master's degree in theology. And the reason why is because relational ministry is another one of those redundant terms.
Yeah.
Everything we do in real ministry in the model of Jesus Christ is relational. I mean, Jesus spent 75% of his time with 12 people. 75% of his, and when he wanted to get real intimate, he took three apart and
Yeah.
he'd really dive deep with those people. And he did that for 3 years, where he spent most of his time for 3 years investing in it. And I try to pitch this, Dan, like, I'll go talk to a priest convocation, and I've done a number of those around the country now. And I talk to these priests and I say, okay, what do you spend most of your time doing? And what do you think the answer would be, Dan?
Something like paper pushing.
Yeah, administration, right? Running the stuff. Were you ordained to be an administrator? And they'd say, no. And I'd say, well, what are you ordained for? I was ordained to be priest, prophet, and king, a ministerial priest, right? Okay, well, what does that look like? Well, in your priesthood, of course, that's sacrificial. That's going to be sacramental then, okay? Um, in the prophet, you're supposed to be preaching and teaching, right? Okay, but really, the percentage of time that most priests spend on preparing a homily, giving that, teaching a class, guiding somebody, and giving the sacraments is a small portion of what most parish priests do.
Yeah.
Okay, so then we got to figure out, well, what's kingship about? And a lot of times, unfortunately, what happens with that is we say that's like running the stuff. It's maintenance. It's taking care of it. Okay, that's true in a sense, but it's not just maintenance of the organization or maintenance of the machinery. It's really maintenance of the people. It's supposed to be leadership.
Yeah.
And studies have shown that if you really want to pastor, or in Catholic language, if you want to be more precise, either pre-evangelization, evangelization, discipleship formation, that's how the church talks about this stuff, because it's not just a priest job. A really talented person can take about 100 people if they do that full time. Like the super talented,
Yeah.
great
Yeah.
people, you do about 100 people. So for a priest at a parish who's already busy, you could probably do about 10 to 15 really well. Okay, so who are the 10 to 15 they're investing in? It should be their most prime leaders who can then go and do it with other people, just like Jesus did. He did 12 guys. He spent a majority of his time doing that. It's leadership. So what does Christian leadership look like? It's servant leadership. It's investment. It's time. It's listening. But it's also, okay, we're going to have a plan. We're going to guide you through this. I'm going to teach you how to do this, not just how to learn the doctrines, not just how to say your prayers, but how to have a real relationship with God, how to bring people to the point of conversion, how to mature a disciple into mission and into prayer, and how to pass this on to other people. Those are the things we're missing in Catholicism right now, because unfortunately we've set up institutions and systems and programs and all these strategies that value big crowds, which aren't a bad thing. But if that's the majority of what we're trying to do, is just gather people for big crowds to listen to a sage on the stage, then we forget that Jesus spent most of his time being the guide next to a person, the guide on the side.
Yeah.
So a lot of buzzwords I threw in there, but we should have a drinking game. I could have gotten a glass of bourbon and we could have done a drinking game for every buzzword, but by this time I'd be buzzing myself.
Yeah. Well, so the next time we do this, then we'll do that.
But I'm not doing the drinking game because Catholic moderation.
Oh yeah. No, I hear you.
Keep pounding that bourbon, man.
Man, okay, so that spurred a couple of questions.
Yeah.
I think you already answered this question, but if a priest said, "Well, I don't have time to do that," you would give that spiel and say, "Okay, that this is what Jesus did." But when they keep hemming and hawing, then what do you say?
Well, what do you spend your time doing? Well, I do all these other things. Okay, why are you doing those things and not giving them to other people? Because that's what I do, or that's the expectation, or whatever. So you got to drill down with a lot of men as to, okay, let's really get deep into the details. And that's what I try to do. So there are people who I've had to walk through their calendar with and say, what are you doing? I mean, I had one lady who was working in administration at a parish, and she was on the leadership team. And I was talking to her about having to, part of what I do is, you have to actually go do what we're talking about, and nobody gets off the hook with me. So I give them homework, and I do one-on-one coaching as well as a group coaching with every group that I do. And it's intense. So one-on-one, I'm coaching as to, okay, well, what does this look like in your job? And I don't have all the answers. I'm trying to bring it out of them. Right.
Yeah.
And she basically got to the point of saying, I need to probably be doing some kind of small group ministry, but I don't have time. That was her conclusion. And I said, well, let's go through she spent, Dan, hours every week watering the flowers in the church. They're like, why do you water the flowers so much? And she said, well, because I feel bad, because all these old ladies, they bring all the flowers up here. I don't want them to die. And I told her, this is what I told her. I said, the flowers must die so that souls can go to heaven.
Oh my gosh. That's probably the best story of I'm too busy to ...
Yeah. And she's like, God. You're right. Yeah. And so I said, if you're still concerned about the flowers and it bothers you, it keeps you up at night, okay, fine, but go find somebody else to do the flowers.
Yeah.
Your job is not to water the flowers. Stop it.
I bet you some of those same people who brought the flowers would bring them water.
Yeah, but the other thing is, let them die. They're going to die anyway. These things don't last long. I mean, the whole point of it is, okay, let's get into the gory details of what you're actually doing, Father. And if it's a priest who's doing all this other stuff, he's going to have to learn how to delegate. And what does delegation means? You give proper authority for people to make decisions. And this is where the rubber meets the road for a lot of people, whether it's a priest or not. People don't like giving up control of decision making. So, I'm guessing you know who Father James Mallon is. I interviewed him just a couple of days ago, and one of the stories he told me is he got put into a new parish, and nobody moves a muscle at this new parish. I mean, this is, by the way, after going through the process of parish renewal with another parish, right? Mm-hmm. St. Benedict's, which is a great model of parish renewal. Writing books and leading an international organization now, he stepped into a new parish, and he's like, it's killing me because, Marcel, I had somebody come to me, and they were saying, from one of the parish buildings down the street, knocks on the rectory door and says, there's a trash can that needs to be emptied. So he just looks at me like, okay. No, there's a trash can that needs to be empty. All right. What do you want me to do about it? And the person went, oh, I guess I had to go empty it.
Oh my God.
So it never even registered that they could even have the authority to empty a trash can without asking Father. So this is the kind of Catholic cultural things we have to approach. With our leaders, because if the leaders don't face up to, this is what the culture of our parish does, how I operate out of that culture, the things that are not healthy for me as a leader, And sometimes it takes somebody like an outsider. This is why I don't work in an institution anymore, because I can more forcefully and a little bit more truthfully speak some of these things to the people within the institution, right? And I can help coach them out of it.
You're
So
so lucky.
that's the kind of, well, yeah, exactly. That's the kind of thing I can do, though. I can tell a bishop those kind of things. I can tell a priest that, look, you got to stop doing this so that you can be a better priest.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, ultimately, if you invest in real fruitful work at the front end of it, okay, the very front end, let's say the first couple of years of trying to do parish renewal, diocesan renewal, and that's inside the culture. Like, you're talking insider stuff. And Dan, you work in the belly of the beast, in a diocese. So that in there are all kinds of things and ways of thinking and systems and other stuff that block real evangelization discipleship beyond the buzzword, right? Beyond just run another program or
Yeah.
do a thing, to really, truly be fruitful. So when we approach those things, it's going to be difficult. It's going to be really hard. And in fact, the investment of your time might go up for a little while, because you're still having to learn what to say no to, what to say yes to, how to do these things, etc. But in the long term, your investment's going to pay off, because you're going to produce people who know how to take this stuff from you, disciples who are on mission, disciples who pay the bills, disciples who volunteer, disciples who are ready to take on more leadership, disciples who can take things off your plate. So yeah, the payoff's not for years down the line, but ultimately you get there.
It almost seems like there's a fear of really engaging that call of missionary discipleship that will scare people off. But the lie that buys into is, we have all these people who are kind of sitting around who aren't fully evangelized, and we're content with that. We're content leaving them in the semi-evangelized form, where they've gone through other sacraments and they show up at mass, but they don't know the Lord and they don't love him. And so for fear of losing them, we never tell them the full story.
Yeah, I think that's a big part of it. I think more than that is even behind. Let's say behind that. Okay, I don't want to say it's not that. I don't want to say you're wrong, because I think
Right.
you're very right. But I think there's something bigger that's going on in Catholic culture, and that is the assumption that they don't need to be evangelized. And so what we've done is, and Sherry Waddell, who you're probably familiar with her work, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so Sherry's a friend of mine, and one of the things I've stolen from Sherry is that never accept a label in place of a story. Or for me, the way I put it is, never fill in the spiritual gaps for another person that you don't know about. Okay. So in other words, we got to get to know people and where they're at. And if we take the label up front, okay, and let me give you a label. Head of the parish council, director of religious education, pastor of St. Anne, and or even, let's say, catechist or usher. All those labels, even involved Catholic, devout Catholic, all those labels, they tell me, okay, this is a disciple. That's what our assumption is. And if our assumption is, because they have that label, a position, an authority, or something else, a title, then they're a disciple. Then my posture before them is, well, then great. Oh, you're on my team.
Yeah.
But if my assumption is, I don't know that they're a disciple until I know they're a disciple, then my posture before them is, maybe they need to be evangelized until I know. So, and I need to get to know them. So I need to listen to them. I need to hear their story. I need to know what's going on. I need to, that's completely different. And Catholics just don't do that.
Yeah, that takes time.
No, it does take time. Look, none of this is efficient. Absolutely not. Not efficient. And we got to get comfortable with being inefficient.
Yeah. Oh man, that's so hard, because I'm probably somewhat maniacal about efficiency, and it's tough to settle into that and to just know. It's almost like not almost. It's a lot like falling in love. Like, there's no efficient way to fall in love. Like, if you go into a relationship thinking, I'm going to efficiently fall in love with this person, you are going to efficiently end that relationship.
Yeah, and it's not like it. It is that.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, the only reason you should be evangelizing somebody is because you love people like God loves people. And I don't really think we have. Now, we can't do this perfectly, but if you want to be a great evangelist, start loving God and love him intensely and passionately and in a way that he wants you to. and then go love other people. It's as simple as that. And if you do those two things, you will be a great evangelist, because ultimately every great evangelist is a saint, and every saint is an evangelist. You cannot find a great saint who is not a great evangelist, and you cannot find a great evangelist who is not a great saint. You can't find them. So what's going to happen is ultimately what we've done is kind of split the two things, holiness and mission. I'll be blogging on this. I've been tossing this around in my head for weeks now, but um, holiness and mission cannot be split, and it's kind of a false dichotomy to put one on the other.
Hmm.
So if you were to take holiness, and it's kind of one thing without mission, okay, what does that look like? Well, it looks kind of boxed up.
Hmm.
It's kind of the Catholic who is very insular and navel gazing,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
always concerned about themselves and their prayer and where they are and how they feel about stuff. But everybody else, they kind of keep at arm's length, especially those dirty people who are not part of our club.
yeah.
It really becomes country club Catholicism.
Hmm.
Okay, that's what it kind of looks like. On the flip of that, if we have mission without holiness, is we become social workers who don't really care about the gospel or Jesus Christ, right? Those
Right.
things are optional. We're just supposed to be good people, go share love, be a good person. It's kind of this hippie kind of understanding of, so we can err in either direction, and we got to be careful about that. They're tied together. Our work of going and sharing the gospel should flow from this deep love of our Lord and others, and come right out of us. It should be something we can't keep to ourselves, but we do so in a natural and attractive way.
Yeah, I think we have some great. I mean, in the last 100 years, we have some amazing examples of that. Nobody better than Mother Teresa, John Paul II, Saint Maximilian Kolbe.
Yeah, absolutely. And keep going down the list, right? Fulton
Yeah,
Sheen and all the rest, right?
yeah,
These
yeah,
these are men and women who loved others, and they loved God, and they loved God first, of course, because you always got
yeah,
to love God first.
yeah,
There is a priority here. But to think about it in that way, I mean, what you're doing is living relationally with God, so that you have this deep, intimate prayer life where that is nurtured by the sacramental graces that the church gives us, and then is sent out. That's what the mass and the sacraments, people don't. Okay, let's properly orient the sacramental life in the entirety of Christianity. They are meant to serve the mission of the church, not vice versa. Okay, the sacraments serve the mission of the church. So the church exists to evangelize. This is what all the church's documents will tell you. It's very
yeah.
clear. The church exists to go make other disciples. And who are the sacraments for? Disciples. Why are they just for the disciples? So they can go make other disciples. That's why at the end of Mass, you receive the Lord, you've heard the word, you've been filled with grace, and then you're kicked out the door to go and take that to other people. That's why when you're healed by the sacraments of healing, so you can leave a better Christian, so you can be a better witness in the world, and make more disciples. This is the sacramental order is ordered towards mission, and we got to keep that in mind. And so the entirety of all that, and the point is not just go make disciples and you can be whatever you. It's also to bring them back to the sacraments, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Of course, it's a circle. But then our problem is we're having some people that come to the sacraments and then we just stay there.
Hmm.
And this, you can have one or the other. That is again, this is kind of the pendulum swings through the ages. Right now in our age, our problem is that we're moving from a Christendom model, which we currently still have in all our structures and processes and things, but we're living in an age of missiondom in the West, but we aren't orienting ourselves that way. So that means if we're still just huddling in our little parishes that are dwindling and declining because in number, and we're not going out there making disciples, all we're doing is watching. It's like Nero, who's fiddling while Rome burns. I mean,
Right.
okay, yeah, everything's burning around us, but we're not going to do anything.
Yeah, yeah. No, this is
Yay.
it. This is one of the times when you burn the ships, and you
Yeah.
say, I don't know what that looks like. I'm not saying like sell the parishes and go out and just meet in field grounds or whatever. But
I think there
this,
in some places it's gonna have to look something like that, though.
yeah, we're,
I
we're gonna
mean,
run out of money and staff.
you're gonna have to at some point say, you know what? If you really want to get bold, let's sell half our churches or recommission them into something else, into community evangelization centers of some sort. What could that look like? Well, it might look different because in one place, maybe you're doing some kind of rehab for meth addicts because it's the number one problem we have in our community. In another place, it might be, okay, well, we live in the burbs and all these people are having credit card debt. Let's talk about financial security and all kinds of other stuff and childcare and things like that. Look, each community has needs that need to be met by the church, and what a witness to the world by doing these, acts of mercy.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, I'm an idea guy, so we could come up with ideas all day long. But anyway,
Well, let's move from ideas to fruit. What
yeah.
fruit have you seen from doing work this way?
Oh my gosh, it's amazing. But I got a phrase I live by, and that is fruitfulness is named more than numbered. Fruitfulness is named more than numbered. Again, this is getting comfortable with it, not being efficient, with this inefficiency. So, I like to name my fruit. It's the men, primarily men, but there's other, there's women as well. But I've worked with a lot more men just because I'm a man, right? And it's easier to work with people who are same sex. So, if I run a small group, it's going to be guys. It's going to be a bunch of guys sitting around. For a long time, it was guys younger than me in college age. Now it's a bunch of middle-aged dudes, basically. Maybe some guys younger than me, who I'm kind of mentoring. But ultimately, it's those names of those men. It's Joe, it's Ben, it's Dylan, it's those guys. It's the ones that I invest my time in. It's Trey. It's the ones I love. It's the guys who we get together, we sit down, and we don't shoot the bull. We're talking about, tell me about your prayer life. What's going on in your marriage? What are you struggling with? What do you need prayers for? And then when we leave, we pray together, and I tell them I love you, and we walk away better men, because that's the way it ought to be. And we don't play the overly macho crap, where, oh, I got to be a tough guy and put up my walls. Nor do we have some kind of whiny, pansy little, emasculated stuff either, which is what our culture wants to do to men. No, we're properly intimate. We love each other and we walk together. That's what fruitfulness looks like. And the reason I'm harping on this is because we got to be careful of just trying to, well, let me put it this way. What was Paul's fruit? It was Timothy. It was Titus. What was St. John's fruit? St. John the Apostle. It was St. Ignatius of Antioch. What was, and then what was St. Ignatius of Antioch? It was St. Irenaeus. I mean, you could go down the list. You could see that it passed from man to man to man down in these early apostolic things and from saints. You see this. It was Ambrose to Augustine to, you get the idea, right? It's it follows that you're going to have kind of these groupings of saints who live together because it takes other saints to be a great saint. Okay. In general, you're going to gather other like-minded people around you to do this. And that's fruitfulness.
Is that what you've seen at A&M?
Yeah, I saw it at A&M. I haven't been there in 4 years. But I will, look, we had, I could give you numbers. I mean, 5,000 people at Mass, 14 people that are joining the seminary and religious life every year, 10 to 14 every year. You had double-digit numbers almost every year I was there.
Right. That's like a diocese.
It actually beats the vast majority of dioceses with the priesthood and religious life. And it's those kind of, we have several hundred men that are ordained who are what we call Aggies, Aggie Catholics from Texas A&M, former students. It's ridiculous. Thinking about it right now, like half the staff that's over there right now on the pastoral team are former interns of mine, including one of the associate pastors. So you could go through the numbers, right? Confession 6 days a week with lines out the door, adoration that, is filled up, that kind of stuff. Yeah, that's great. But even there has been some decline with some of the numbers. So let's not, just put a rose-colored glasses on and say everything's okay. Culture's hitting the church hard. COVID's hitting the church hard. And other things can distract away from mission. In fact, sometimes past success is the biggest barrier to future success. You just do what worked, previously. Yeah. So we got to be careful about that as a church. To think this worked over here doesn't mean it's going to work, in this place or in this time. With that being said, A&M is a great place. Don't get me wrong. The campus ministry there is strong still.
There's I don't know if you're familiar with this guy. You probably are, because he's well known right now. But Jocko Willink, Navy SEAL, has a pretty popular podcast right now. And I was listening to him recently, and he was answering a question, And I think somebody was basically looking for a silver bullet, and he responded by saying, "The one answer is not the answer." And
Yeah.
as you were saying, like we got to be careful not to just repeat what we did last year, last decade. I think it's very easy to fall into that and say, well, if we just figure this out, and society is going to change radically in the next 20 years, and the best way to reach people is going to look different in 2040. And I think
Mhm.
we've got to be adept and nimble and on our toes so we can adjust appropriately. Otherwise, we're going to be scratching our head and saying, "Wow, they moved my cheese on me. How do I get this done?"
Yeah, and right now the models that the church is operating in are at best 20th century. They're even, you could say, 16th century in a lot of ways, because
Yeah,
what happened was post-Reformation, the church decided, well, the best way to respond is to formalize things. Like, we're going to set up the seminary system that was done in
yeah, yeah,
Trent, right? We're going to catechize children to kind of inoculate them against the Protestant Reformation ideas. So we'll teach them at a young age. So by the time they're adults, they know their Catholic, catechism, they'll be inoculated. Folks, we're still doing that right now. I
for
mean,
sure.
we haven't changed substantially the formation or the evangelization or the structures since the 16th century. So at best, we're 20th century in that we've adjusted some to the United States, we have some things.
Yeah,
But what worked 5 years ago does not necessarily work now. So definitely what worked 500 years ago is probably not going to work now. In the
yeah,
sense of, have we even examined what is it we're doing and why are we doing it, and is this stuff working, right? I mean, so anyway, that's what we have to keep in the back of our minds. Okay, why are we doing it this way? And I think a lot of Catholic leaders right now, and I'll speak boldly to this, because what's going to happen? Nobody, I mean, the best anybody's going to do is not hire me.
yeah,
You couldn't say something like this, but the on average, most of our Catholic leadership right now are followers. They're not leaders. They just have positions of authority, even though they don't have the leadership skill or ability or talent or charisma to actually get out in front and lead. That means that we're going to do a lot of the things we're currently doing and just watch as we decline. So they're managers of decline because they don't know any better. God bless them. And that's where my
yeah,
job
yeah,
comes in, is I'm trying to shake up people and say, look, folks, if you're off course by a small degree and you're off course for many years for a small degree, you look back and you've gone way off course. You've hundreds of miles off course. To get back, you need a left-hand turn, a right-hand turn. You gotta actually make a radical course correction to get back to where you're supposed to be now.
yeah.
We're
And
not, most
that's
people aren't
tough to
willing
do.
to, yeah, most people aren't willing to do that. So
Yeah,
everything should be on the table, in other words, except the things that are divinely revealed or required by an authority higher than me.
yeah.
Right?
I'm kind of in the same boat. I mean, as if it's kind of think like if it's not nailed down, then
Mhm.
it's got to go. So
Yeah,
um,
absolutely.
or maybe it doesn't have to go, but it can go. Like everything's up for discussion. Like you said, if it's not part of church teaching, magisterium, divine law, then
Mhm.
like
Or canon law, you got to throw in the canon law, right?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
it is. It's part of these things that are required of me, and at some ways, whatever the bishop of your diocese requires. Okay, but if he changes his mind and I can get him to change his mind on to do something better, then we're golden.
yeah,
But yeah, put it all on the table and assess: is it working? Is it not? Why are we doing it? And ask those tough questions, but do so in a prayerful way too, not just because I think it's great. Because then,
right.
if you are, then you're getting back to, well, it's a gold, a silver bullet. It's your golden goose, right? It's the thing. And I know people who do that. And look, we're prone to it. I mean, you think about somebody who comes up to you and you say, Dan, I got to tell you about what happened this past weekend. I just went on this retreat. It was the most amazing experience of God that I've ever had in my entire life. Dan, you have to go on this retreat. Dan, everybody has to go on this retreat. Okay. Now, if you get a little bit of distance from that weekend, you're probably not going to say, Dan, you have to go on this retreat and everybody has to go on this retreat. But what happens a lot of times is Catholic culture builds up an experience, a program, or something else into the sacred cow
Hmm.
to say that's the thing. And
Yeah.
that's a lie. That's a
Name
lie.
your acronym.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I play the acronym game now. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, so if you could snap and just say, all right, here, like, Lord, answer my prayer.
Mhm.
What do you think you'd like to see at parishes? That I, mean, I think you described an individual model very
Yeah.
well. Would you just scale that, or would you do something different?
It does need to be scaled, but it doesn't work just being scaled. So part of what has to happen is you're going to have a couple of things in place. Okay, first of all, you got to have the right vision, and you got to have a visionary leader to lead the right vision. And they're going to have to sell the vision. They're going to have to continue to proclaim the vision, and they're going to have to lead in implementing the vision. Okay, without the proper vision, you don't know where you're going. Right? It's like if we started a journey and I said, "Hey, let's go on a trip," and you'd say, "Where?" and I'd say, "I have no idea." Then what's the point of the trip?
Hmm.
So we got to know where we're going. So what's the vision for where we're going? And from there, we're going to actually pray. So there's got to be that spiritual component. So you're going to have vision, you're going to have prayer, and then you're going to gather a team around you that shares these kind of things. And if they don't completely share it, you're going to start to form them so they can do it. And then you're going to start to implement and start to, while you're doing the prayer and the discernment, you're going to start to figure out what is God calling us to as a team to lead into, right? How do we implement that vision? So we know where we want to go: parish renewal, more fruitfulness. We want to change things. We want to evangelize. We want to form disciples. We want to do all this stuff. But how do we do it on the ground for our parish? And that looks different from parish to parish to parish. And this is where things get sticky because, if you just have a plug and play formula, and that's what most people like, right? Hey, let me give you the box set. Here's your box. You go
Yeah.
do this, you go do
Hmm.
A, you go do B, you go do C, and then it works because I'm going to give you all the answers. Well, that's how a consultant works, which is why I'm not a consultant. I'm not going to give you a slick production that's going to have your 45 different recommendations for implementing in the next 5 years. Here, give me $500,000. The fact of the matter is that's how a lot of Catholic leadership stuff has been done in the past, and it's proven that it doesn't change anything. What has proven to change things are intense corporate prayer and intense corporate discernment that leads to a place of renewal by a group of saints gathering together to go do mission. So how do we do that? We start to gather people together who need to, who want to do it with us, and we do it together. And it's tough, and it's slow, and it's slogging through all the problems,
Yeah.
and it's facing. Ultimately, what you want is culture change. But the old phrase, "Culture eats strategy for breakfast and lunch and dinner too," is true. Um, it's very true.
I really appreciate that you have a respect for the dynamic nature of this, that it's not formulaic and it's not just here, let me tell you exactly what you need to do. Because like you said, I mean, if you're in Appalachia, you have a different social need than
Hmm.
somebody who's living in Boca Raton.
Yeah,
Just very
absolutely.
different.
Hmm.
And
Yeah,
change the zip code, change the problem. And so if somebody just came in and said, "Here's your solution," it's only going to work at situations where that solution came from.
yeah,
Um,
and this is something that I learned early on, and I've been doing ministry for a couple of decades now, just about. And when I started in campus ministry, I did 4 years at Texas Tech before taking over running the day-to-day operations at A&M. When I got to A&M, A&M already had a reputation, and we grew that thing. By the time I left, we had crazy amounts of staff and money and other stuff. We
mhm.
grew just exponentially while I was there, and that growth came, with it a reputation, and for good or for bad, right? And a lot of it untrue. We weren't.
Mhm.
We would look at ourselves and go, yeah, yeah, we gathered the most people and stuff, but we still haven't even gotten a majority of kids who call themselves Catholic or come to school. We suck. I mean, that's
Yeah.
literally what I would tell our staff. We're terrible. Let's go do it. But people would come to us, Dan, and they'd say, how do we do this? How do we replicate what you're doing at A&M? And I'd say, you can't. The principles might apply, but you got to go figure out how to do this. And this is actually
Right.
when I started coaching people, was while I was at A&M with people who wanted to go replicate this at other places. And we'd have people from Australia and Canada and France and Great Britain come over, and Africa. They'd say, how are you doing this? And we'd say, well, here are the principles. And they might apply in your context, but I have no idea what's going on in your country or your state or on your campus. I don't know the people or the culture or the gifts of the community or anything else. You do. You're the expert there. But here are the principles. Try to go apply those. And I think it helped a lot of people. But, I also learned the limitations of trying to be an outsider to do all that work.
Yeah.
We can't from the outside change it if the people inside don't want to change. Okay.
Yeah. Like you
So
said,
we have,
culture change.
yeah, we have to be the ones who are trying to coach the other people to do this kind of stuff, but I can't do it by myself, right? Especially from a distance.
Yeah.
And I've worked with people from all over the country, and I've talked to people all over the world now, and it's tough work. It's not make light of it. It's tough work, but it's worth it.
For sure. Yeah. I think I know for me especially, it's easy to think like, oh, if we just do this, then it'll be so easy. And there's probably never going to be a point where it's easy. Like, I mean, if we look at Jesus's ministry, it wasn't easy, but I mean, hard things are worth doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jesus took the bullets, well, the arrows. Okay. He didn't have bullets back then. He took the arrows, right? I mean, he literally was dragged out of town and they were going to stone him.
Yeah.
Paul is a good, representative for all of us. I mean, how many times was he flogged? How many times was he in prison? How many times was he shipwrecked?
Yeah.
And he talks about all this. How many times was he cussed at? And all these problems. He did so because he knew the gospel was true. And he also knew that if he didn't preach to these people, there would be souls that would go to hell. Yeah. And I think we got to realize that if we don't do the work that we're called to do, and I don't mean go and, you're going to be able to work and it's just all the elbow grease is going to save somebody's soul. But yeah, we got to cooperate with the grace, and we got to say yes to it. And grace builds on nature. And if we don't say yes to, I'm going to have the difficult conversation, I'm going to go serve that person, I'm going to change my habits so that more souls go to heaven, I am going to grow in prayer and in mission, I'm going to learn what it takes to go and actually evangelize and share my faith, even though the cultural norm in the Catholic Church right now is I'm kind of an oddball. I'll do it because I care more about souls than I do my own reputation, my own comfort, the lack of persecution, and the fact that I'm going to have my name on a billboard. I don't want, or the riches. I don't want that stuff. I want to go to heaven and glorify God's name. And bring as many people to heaven with me as possible.
Yeah,
that's the heart that we need to have. And there are moments, of course, when I'm real passionate and I do that well, and there's others I don't, and then I got to go repent. I mean, I can be a terrible evangelist as well as a pretty good one.
Yeah. I think you kind of just answered my last question, which was what should like the individual do who realizes they need to start doing something more? You really just said like commit to praying more, change your habits, embrace the difficulty of this, make sure you're not more sinful than you. Make sure you're not sinful, repent, and keep at it.
Yeah. And that's here. Let me tell you something else though. And this is something that we kind of specialize in Catholic Missionary Disciples. There's a lot of stuff out there that'll teach you how to run a program, and you go learn how to evangelize in your parish programs. And that's great because it can teach people how to do it there. But until you're doing it organically as a lifestyle, you're not becoming an evangelist. You might be doing some evangelization, but you're not an evangelist.
Yeah.
An evangelist has a lifestyle of mission. Now, that does not mean, Dan, that I am constantly walking through my neighborhood going, hey, do you know Jesus Christ? Hey, you want to go to church? That's annoying. Don't do that. Please, please, for the love of the Lord, don't do it. But when an opportunity presents itself, how do you have a conversation about important things like God?
Yeah.
How do you ask and initiate in relation? How do you actually build friendships? Because, this is one of my passions. Guys especially suck at friendships, but men and women suck at spiritual friendships. What does it look like to have spiritual friends that you're really walking with deeply and intentionally and purposefully? And how do you build those? And how do you start, if you don't have them, how do you start to invite other people into it? Those are the kind of things we teach. And then we also get into, okay, well then how do you also preach the gospel? How do you share your testimony? How do you ask questions that are big? How do you listen and assess where somebody is spiritually, because you know where somebody is spiritually, pre-discipleship or discipleship, and then respond appropriately so that you're not just meeting them where they are, but you're also helping take them to the place they should be. These are the kind of skills that all Catholics need to start to grow in.
So how do they do that?
Well, I'm going to cough first and drink a little bit of water, then I'll answer.
Okay.
Well, look, you can go read books. I wrote a book on this. It's over here, Contagious Catholic. I'm a terrible salesperson with that thing. But let's be honest, how many people read a book and then their lifestyle changes?
Not that many.
You could say, well, I can go to a conference and learn this stuff, but how many people have their lifestyle change because of a conference?
Even less.
Even fewer. So you got to find somebody who's going to invest time, and you got to continue to do it. And you got to find some accountability structures. Gotcha. We try to provide some of that, but we can't provide it all.
Yeah.
So you can look us up. TransformCatholic.com is our new initiative. But even there, it's a limited resource. I'll be honest. I mean, we can only do so much.
Right. And I think that goes back to this isn't a program. It's not something you can just consume, click through, flip through, watch and get it. It's based on
Yeah.
spiritual friendship.
Yeah. Let's be careful. Because again, Catholic culture doesn't take kindly to what I'm saying. Catholic culture says invite somebody to mass, which by the way is not the place you should invite most people because
No, yeah,
it's awkward.
100%.
It's awkward.
Yep.
Protestants are going to be offended when they can't go to communion, et cetera, et cetera. The non-Catholic's not supposed to go to communion anyway.
Yeah.
You get my point. Don't invite them over to your house. Have dinner. Go to lunch. Don't go to mass. Invite them to mass.
Yeah. Yeah.
And start to build real friendship and start to learn what it takes to do this stuff. Say, where am I deficient? And then start to work on it. I've got a frog in my throat like you can't imagine.
That makes sense though. It's like, okay, so you don't know how to do this. Then play the fool and do it poorly until you learn how to do it well.
Yeah, and thanks for covering for me. No, it is. You're not going to have all the answers. But here's the other thing. You got to start to rely on the Holy Spirit. Do I really trust that God's going to do the heavy lifting in this? I mean, really. And I ask this question all the time. I'm like, okay, Lord, what about this person? I'm praying for him. I've been praying for him for years. When's it going to happen, Jesus? And then you stop and you go read the Bible. You ever heard of the Promised Land? How long did it take them just to even get there? And then they got pulled out of it when they were unfaithful. The rug pulled out from under them. And they went into exile several times for generations. Generations. I mean, I try to put myself in Babylon sometimes as one of the ancient Israelites and say let's just say I was one of the first kids born in Babylon. And I grew up and I'm an old man in Babylon. And I'm praying, Lord, I don't want to be here anymore. When are you going to come? When are you going to fulfill the promise that you said that you would fulfill? Lord, when are you going to be faithful to this promise? And then I die. And I've talked to my grandkids about that. And my great grandkids are the ones who finally get to see exile end. Now, on the one hand, you're thinking they're generations of people who just lived in exile completely and never got the fulfillment of that promise. And in a sense, this may be the state of the church right now in the West. We're in decline. Mm-hmm. We're probably going to be a shrinking church for the foreseeable future. But that doesn't mean we cannot build faith and we cannot build more disciples and we cannot grow in a real sense of the word of growth, not just in numbers, but in intensity and faithfulness and holiness. And I can only control a few things. And those few things include my decisions on a day-to-day, moment-to-moment basis. That's it. So what am I going to decide to do for the salvation of somebody else and myself and to glorify God? Because that's what really matters in this life. And if I don't believe that, then my discipleship's been a fraud.
Yeah.
It's been a fraud. So we really got to crack some of these expectations and problems and issues and cultural items that are intensely kind of formative in the way we do things, and then say, I'm going to do something different. And until we get to that point, we're going to continue to decline and people are going to continue to go to hell. And I talk about hell because it's a reality. We got to be careful about the fact of kind of being semi-universalists or universalists.
Yeah.
It is a dangerous thing to tiptoe into.
Yeah.
God allows people to go to hell.
Right.
That's the fact. I don't know individually anybody, but
Yeah.
I know there are people in hell. It is not empty.
Yeah.
The Bible's pretty clear about that, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think if you say hell's empty, then I think you're also saying Jesus wasted his time on the cross.
Yeah, and not only that, but what's the point? Why would I be commanded to go? Look, if hell is empty and heaven's all there is for everybody, what's the point of all this? Forget it, dude. There's a whole lot of stuff I'm going to start doing real quick because it'd be a whole lot more fun in a sense, without meaning, but fun.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Anyway.
One more question came to me as you're talking about really the need to just kind of embrace this reality of keep trudging and maintain faithfulness to the Lord. And it's not to say that like life is going to be a slog. Like there's going to be so much joy lived in family and lived in friendship. But it's not going to be easy to just go convert the world. So St. Paul was a tent maker. He had a trade where he could go make money while he evangelized. And early in life, I thought, okay, I'm going to go spend the rest of my life working for the church. Now I'm to the point where I want to encourage people to be tent makers and say, you know what, like in 30 years, the church might not be able to employ you. So find something now that's very marketable that you can use to support your family. And then while you're doing that, evangelize. Because
Yeah.
everybody, like whether you work for the church or not, we need to evangelize.
Yeah. Well, let me give you a couple things. People that don't work for the church are probably better evangelists than the vast majority of people who do work for the church. The best evangelists I know don't work in a church or an apostolate, and the reason why um, is not because they don't have a passion for the Lord, not because they're a lesser disciple. It's because they know more people who don't go to church and who aren't
Yeah.
Catholic and in the little bubble.
Yeah.
The fact of the matter is that a lot of people, what ends up happening, Dan, is things like this. Okay, I did the Catholic speaker circuit for a good long time. And what would happen inevitably is somebody would come up to me, especially young people, and they might have heard a message and they say, "Man, I want to do what you do." I worked in campus ministry. I had numerous young people, men and women, they'd come up to me, they say, "I want to be a campus minister. I want to do what you do, or I want to be a speaker. I want to write books. I want to reach people. I want to be an evangelist." And I'd say, "Okay, but what are you studying? Engineering?" And I'd say, "Okay, you want to be an engineer?" I say, "Why do you want to be an engineer?" "Because I'm really good with math and building stuff." I'd say, "Okay, go be an engineer. You're gonna find more souls who are far away from God being an engineer than you will in this church. And while you're doing that, talk about your faith, because what your desire really is to be fruitful, not necessarily to be the guy up on the stage.
Yeah.
Your desire is not necessarily to be the woman who's running the parish. It's the one who wants to reach people with the love of Jesus Christ. So you can do that. In fact, it's easier to do it. Now, I'm gonna tell you, I agree 100% with you. I think that the church is going to shrink substantially in size of its bureaucracy in rapid succession here of the decades that are coming. So you want a job, it's just going to get harder and harder to get one. They're going to pay less, and they're also going to be harder to do in a fruitful way. So now I also think that renewal comes through the parish. So how do we do that then? With fewer staff, less budget, and yet if we really want to renew the church, we do it through the parish. Well, we got to raise up local leaders who are not working for the parish, but are just disciples on mission in the parish. And by the way, when I say in the parish, I'm not talking about the parish structure, not at the parish doors. I'm talking
Yeah.
about in the parish boundaries, at
Yeah.
your
The zip
house.
code.
Yes, at your house, at your place of work, at the schools, in the neighborhoods, literally in the neighborhoods. I mean, this is something I've been calling for a long time. And I was like, okay, but I've been doing a lot of stuff with a lot of people in my community for a long time. I don't do anything I don't do anything normally in my parish. I don't do any kind of ministry. I'm not on a board. I'm not on a leadership stuff. I've done all that stuff. I've done it forever, right? But I'm not engaged in my parish ministry structures or anything of that stuff right now. But I'm probably more fruitful than the vast majority of people who are. Not because I'm better at it, but because I'm actually just doing something that works a little bit better, which is running small group and one-on-one stuff with people.
Right.
Anyway, I'm trying to live out the model that Jesus Christ, that I'm trying to teach other people. So when we get to that point, we could start to renew our parishes, but it's also going to be renewing our local culture and local places where we live and work and study and all the other stuff.
Man, well, Marcel, we'll have to have you back another time to talk about the rest of that. You're definitely revving me up, because those are things that I feel like the Lord is going to reveal to me over the past couple of years. But let's end with some hot takes, if that's okay with you.
Oh, so yeah, because I do hot takes all the time.
Okay, awesome. Best barbecue in Texas?
Well, it's brisket, but if you're asking about a place.
Yes, I'm asking about. I already knew the answer was brisket. I know you guys don't need anything else.
Yeah, it's briskets 100%. Well, here's the funny thing. In my local area, it would not be considered the best brisket. So it's probably the guy who really spends like 2 days working on his brisket, that guy in his backyard.
Okay, gotcha. So it's a neighbor. It's not a chain. It's a neighbor.
No, there's no chains that are really good. It's the little place that has Texas Monthly puts out a top 100 thing. Go find the top 10. Any of those people, blow your socks off.
Gotcha. Well, I'm asking that, but is it the same thing with tacos?
Oh, absolutely. But it's a lot easier to find a good taco in Texas than it is brisket.
Okay.
A lot easier, because brisket's a little bit more of an art form.
Yeah.
Tacos are just amazing. I mean, and they're simple.
Yeah, they are. I've tried brisket a couple times, and I feel like each time I just throw away $60.
Oh my gosh, no. You got to get the right brisket. It's so good.
Yeah, that's the problem. I'm probably getting the wrong brisket to
Yeah,
start
you got to
with.
get the right brisket.
Okay.
Don't get it in Tennessee. Anyway,
Uh,
pulled
so,
pork
all
over
right,
there.
you might not be as invested in this question as I think, but I'm asking anyway. Should Texas A&M be ranked higher, and should Alabama be ranked lower than they currently are?
Alabama, heck no, they're super talented, and I think that they have probably the only other team in the country that could beat Georgia right now, and they very well might. A&M, they're probably about where they ought to be.
Okay.
And
So
yeah,
good weekend for them, bad weekend for Bama.
yeah, I think you got to earn your way back. I mean, we had a couple of bad losses when we lost our quarterback and had a new offensive line. I mean, we had to replace 4 out of 5 offensive linemen. Had a new quarterback because our starter got injured, and he was a little shell shocked. Our backup, and so our offense really struggled in like 4 games. So
Yeah.
we're probably where we ought to be. We got to earn that ranking. Now I could tell you some other teams that are overranked, but
Yeah. One begins with OH and ends with IO.
yeah, well,
Sorry, Ohio fans.
Well, Oklahoma too. I mean, come on, have they had any good wins? They've barely beaten a bunch of terrible teams. I mean, for goodness sake. I mean,
Yeah.
they had Kansas, the worst team in the world, and they had them right there in the middle of the fourth quarter. Give me a
Oh
break.
man.
Oh,
man.
you should not be that team. Anyway,
No.
so
Alrighty. So if you could have a saint superpower, like bilocation, soul reading, or levitation, what would it be?
I don't want soul reading, man. That's awful. Yeah, I don't want levitation either because that would just creep people out. I'm going to go with bilocation. Yeah,
Okay.
that's a
Gotcha.
great one, probably.
Yeah.
Double. I'd be chilling right now, and I'd be working also at the same time, or like
No, that's
hanging
a
with
good
my
one.
wife and my buds.
Yeah.
Sweetie, this is seriously good time with you.
Your wife doesn't play poker with you?
No.
What tip do you have? Would you give people to be more productive?
Lists.
Lists? Okay.
To-do
Gotcha.
list. The other one, eat the frog.
Okay. Oh, I like that one. I do that
Yeah,
a lot.
eat the frog, which is, if people don't know what that means, it's basically if you had to eat a frog a day, you do it at the very beginning and get it over with. So take the most unpleasant thing you have to do and do it first thing.
Yeah,
that
there you
one's
go.
good.
I like that one. Mark Twain, right?
Yeah.
Best advice you would give to a recent college grad who came out of a great campus ministry program and they're looking for how to get involved or how to evangelize.
Okay, you're going to have to teach people how to initiate. You're going to have to teach people how to initiate. So if you want deep spiritual friendships, you're going to have to teach people how to be a friend. If you want to go and teach people how to pray, you're going to have to pray. So you're going to have to initiate in just about everything because there's too few leaders out there.
Oh man, that's tough. That's a tough order, but I agree with you.
Yeah, it is. So I had to give up not initiating years ago in order to be a better evangelist and a better friend.
Yeah. Most underappreciated scripture verse or church teaching?
Underappreciated. Okay. This is like, it's kind of a cop out, but it's the truth. It's just the gospel.
I'm with you. Yeah, there you go. Boom.
It's the gospel. It's in the gospel messages that Jesus Christ lived and died and rose from the dead so that you and I can go to heaven. And he wanted to come save us from our sins, right? So if the fact of the matter is, if that's true, that is the most underappreciated because too few people believe it.
There you go. Yeah, I think if you asked the majority of Catholics, or if you asked most Catholics, what's the basic gospel message, they would struggle.
They struggle. Actually,
and that should just roll off our lips.
Most leaders struggle to do it well. Let's put it that way. Yeah, I actually have to coach people how to do that too. Yeah.
Okay. Favorite way of contemplative prayer?
It's a good question. Probably really trying to just rest in the arms of God while in adoration.
I like that.
Quiet, contemplative adoration. Yeah.
That's good. I think you alluded to this earlier, but area with the most abundant low-hanging fruit for evangelization.
It's right in front of you. It's the Catholic who's not doing it. It's the Catholic disciple who's not doing it right now. That's really what it is. It's the person who says, I know I ought to, but is just not doing it. Yeah. So can you imagine? I mean, we're literally in single digit percentage wise of people who are intentional disciples.
Yeah, that's embarrassing.
Even fewer of those people are actually going out and actively evangelizing. And even fewer of those people who actively evangelize are doing so in a lifestyle way of evangelization. So you're talking probably like 1% of people who are doing that or less.
Yeah, yeah,
If
I
we were
would
to,
go with way less.
yeah, if we were to double or triple that number, think of the impact we could have, Dan.
Yeah, for sure. Um, what do you hope your kids say about you at your funeral?
He loved me
Hmm,
and he loved the Lord.
man, that's good stuff. What should every Catholic start doing today to help us become a missional church?
Donate to Catholic Missionary Disciples. Monthly supporters. No, for real though, we do have to start to support creative and fruitful ministries, and I think that a lot of productivity in today's world, we have to. Let me put it this way: a lot of big money is put behind big initiatives that bear little fruit. And the most fruitful things are usually smaller initiatives that need the money in order to grow. And right now, the things that need to grow are not getting the big money. So
Can
put
you
your
give
money
us
where it is.
Yeah, can you give us 5 examples of what you would donate to if you had money to donate?
Oh, I do have money to donate, and I do donate to them. I
Okay,
would
sorry.
find a
I wasn't implying that you didn't, but it
yeah.
was,
No, but here's the thing, and I think this is important to witness to is that my wife and I are very intentional about tithing and putting aside the money because this is God's and it's off the top. And we give to things like there are some local small initiatives that do overseas missions. There's a couple of those. So I would find one that hits you where you're passionate and then give to that. Find smaller local things that are really investing in people. And the reason I'm not naming names is because what I donate to may not be what you guys are called to donate to. So I'd rather not name names,
yeah.
but find smaller local things that are fruitful and imaginative and creative, but are doing good work and have, good structures too. You want to get to something that's going to, but do your homework and then pray about it. And then if the Lord gives you peace about it, start donating. And, but look, just on a small level here, we have apostolates that have grown into international things in our local community because they came out of the people who came out of our campus ministry. And I could give you names of these and you'd be like, oh, heck yeah, I know that one. Um, those are the kind of things that needed local support before they got to be big things,
Yeah.
right? And they needed small donors before they got the really big ones. So be a small donor if you can't be a big donor.
Gotcha. I appreciate that advice. It would have been really easy to just name your favorite 5, but I think what you did
Yeah,
was
and
much more helpful.
yeah, let's make I want to be careful about that because and somebody listening in Peoria shouldn't necessarily be donating to what I'm doing.
Yeah, yeah. Well, your website is catholicmissionarydisciples.com.
Mm-hmm.
So people can go check you out there if they're interested.
Yeah.
If they want to receive coaching from you, they can go check that out and get in touch with you. I would imagine you're pretty busy.
Yeah, there's always stuff to do. And I'd also point people to transformcatholic.com, which is you can pay a little monthly fee and you can go, get all the video support of training about how to be a better evangelist. But with that also, we're trying to build this system to be able to do this in a better way. So this is just our first go at it. But
Gotcha.
even if you don't want to pay, you get a free 4-part series about how to start that. So
Gotcha. Cool.
transformcatholic.com.
So let's folks head to transformcatholic.com and catholicmissionarydisciples.com. Marcel LeJeune, thank you so much for your time. God bless you, brother, and please count on our prayers for you and everything you're doing.
Appreciate it, Dan.
All right, peace be with you. Bye,
Peace.
everyone.